to North of 60. My name is Heidi Schweighofer. My guest today is actually a part 2 guest. I enjoyed so much talking with Kevin Nelson from the Hudson Fire Department that the 30 minutes went by in 1 minute and we still hadn't covered everything we wanted to cover. So I'd like to introduce Kevin Nelson to you again. Kevin is a lieutenant with the Hudson Fire Department. He's been with them since 27. He has done literally every task one can imagine with the fire department, and I know him best as an educator. And so I'd like you to listen to what he has to say and learn about some programs that are going on in Hudson to keep us all safe. Thank you, Kevin.
Sure. Thank you for having me back.
You're very welcome. All right, here's what I'd like to start with. You come into my house, my husband calls and I'm on the floor. And he is rattled. He doesn't remember any medications I'm on. He doesn't remember my allergies. He doesn't remember my medical history, nothing. And I'm not talking. So how do you learn about that information? What do you recommend that everybody, not just seniors, but everybody have with them?
And one of the greatest things that we have, just to give us a lot of information, is it's called a fridge pack, or in some communities they call it an ice pack. And that kind of came from in case of emergency. And so that was kind of some of the history back behind on why it was called what it was. But inside, the nice thing is, in the event of an emergency, we can head towards the refrigerator. Most places have that. So it can be on the outside. I know my wife isn't necessarily a huge fan of having a lot of things on the outside of the fridge. So it does come with the magnet. And it comes that you can attach it on the inside of the fridge as well. So, but in the event that we can't find the information that we need, inside the pack has all of the information, but it's also important to make sure that you review this on a regular basis. So think of a birthday as, I remember when I was little, birthdays were awesome because it meant all kinds of exciting things. As I got older, okay, now I have to renew my license, I have to do this, but that's a great time just to remember to take a look and make sure that all the medications are the same. As the years pass, sometimes you're on different medications, sometimes different health events have happened. So it's best to then update this. And that way, because it is a very, very scary event. We get to do it on a regular basis, so we're used to that emergency feeling. A lot of people, that's not. It is the most terrifying day of their lives.
Yes.
And to not be able to think clearly, to say, I'm not sure. Great, we can go to this pack, we can grab it, all the information can be right in there. And it's just one of those very, very simple things that we can go. And that just helps with the care. The EMS people are trained to assess and take care of it. But if there are certain drugs that you're on that might interact with other drugs, those are all important things to know. So it's a very, very valuable, but it's such a simple thing to have.
Okay.
So that is kind of the fridge packs.
Now, should I be carrying in my purse a list of the medications I'm on?
And that's another great
allergies?
thing. The hardest thing with that is it's difficult that if you were able to get it out to let us know on, I know one of the residents in town talked, and she had an amazing notebook. It was the most thorough medical history I've ever seen, but it was on the shelf. And she knew right where it was, but in the event of an emergency, if we can't find it rapidly, it's kind of hard on, we don't want to just root through things, or a lot of times, I know when I was an EMT 20 years ago, one of the things that they would do if you weren't sure is you go to the bathroom or go to the nightstand, and any of the bottles you can find, we would put in a bag and take with us. This is a much easier way, that way we're not having to remove anything from the house. So it is great to have a list. That it really, really helps if you can hand that, and that's if you're talking to us. But in the event that you can't get that information out, it would be one of those things that we may or may not be able to track down. A lot of times it's kind of one of those, if it's a rapid thing and you're not able to respond, they're going to hit the basics, get you into the ambulance and get you to more definitive care as soon as they can.
My dad had a number of medical episodes in the last couple of years of his life, and I know that because I was there when EMS came, and I know that, my gosh, the very first question they asked me was what medications he was on, and he had a list that was huge. And we kept encouraging him, you know, keep it up to date, keep it up to date, but that's so important. I just couldn't believe how important that was to them. All right, number 2, I want to talk about the Are You OK program, because you know
Awesome.
about this a lot. The Are You OK program is a free program for seniors. It is simply someone making a phone call to you and saying hello, and just being a friendly contact on a weekly basis. It's nothing more than that. You sign up by calling the EMS department, and they will send you out a very brief application and another form. You send it back in, or you can drop it off, and you will be assigned a volunteer. For those of you who are not family in town, have family outside of Hudson or further away than Ohio, and you're living alone, what a nice thing to have happen, to be able to talk to someone every single week, learn what's going on in Hudson, talk about the kinds of things happening with you in your life, and just bringing someone into your life. The Are You OK program, very easy to enroll. Call Hudson EMS on their non-emergency number, and they will be able to direct you to how to fill out an application. I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. And kind of on that same note, while we're having people sign up for things, sometimes it's just great to catch up on some of the changing technology. So back when I was younger, the phone was attached to the wall. And it was so easy you could pick it up, you could call 911, and everybody knew exactly where you were. In the modern day, we now have phones that have kind of replaced that wall unit. So a lot of homes don't necessarily have that anymore. And one of the downsides is that took away the ability to have the reverse 911. So we used to be able to do a blanket call out that anybody that had a landline that was in the community, you could then backwards call and say there's an emergency, or there's a gas leak, or there's a whatever. The Code Red program, the city identified that was kind of an area that we could really improve communications. So you can go to the city webpage and you can sign up for the Code Red program, and it is an emergency alert system. It is a nationwide thing. I know actually when I was on vacation up in Michigan, the community that we were vacationing at was part of the Code Red program, and I received, because I had the information on mine, it sent notification saying there's an emergency in the area, there was an incoming storm. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program. But in Hudson, for us, it is awesome because it can do the weather thing. It can, you can receive in a lot of different ways. So you can have it call your phone, you can have it text your phone, you can have it email you, you can have as many numbers set up as you wanted. And so that way you can find whatever is convenient for the way you like to receive your information. But the big ones where it's going to affect all of Hudson is it's a wonderful way that we can rapidly send it out to everybody in Hudson.
So now let me stop you a minute. So is it that alarm sound that you hear on the radio that, I don't want to make...
Depending on how you have it set up, on if it was just the text, it just pings just like you would receive any other text.
Oh.
But if the phone rings...
But then it would say tornado warning, go seek shelter or something.
And then the email, it would just have in the tagline on that it was from Code Red and go along with that. But the nice thing, in the event of a more localized emergency, the fire department, the chief and the assistant chief have access to the Code Red map that they can actually circle an area and say, I need everything in that circled area to be contacted for maybe down power lines, or maybe there was a leak at a building, or maybe there was, whatever that type of emergency might be, we can then send that out through the Code Red program. So I know it was probably a few years ago, but we had a straight line wind event in Hudson where it wasn't really a tornado, but we had a lot of damage happen in localized places. That we had power lines that were still live. It hadn't blown the breakers, but they were in people's backyards. So the storm had passed, but we were trying to get that information out rapidly. So that was one of those times that we were able to use Code Red, circle a street and said, stay in your houses at this time until we can get that addressed.
Thank heavens.
It was awesome. I mean, we have so many awesome features of, Hudson Public Power was out with us. They were able to de-energize the lines as soon as they could, but in that meantime, to make sure that we can try and get people
stay inside
safe.
instead of going out and looking at the tree damage in their backyard.
Exactly.
How do you sign up for that?
So you can sign up if you go to the City of Hudson
you said that.
webpage.
That's right. Okay.
I believe there's a couple different locations. I believe if you scroll all the way down, it was kind of centered near the bottom of the webpage. If you go to the Hudson Fire part of the city webpage, there's another link to the Code Red. So there's a couple different ways. If you're having a hard time with it, you can always call the non-emergency fire department line, and we'll help any way that we can. There are times that sometimes it's easier if you just tell us the information and we'll figure it out.
I want to absolutely sign up for that. That is just excellent. And then I can elect to do it by text, right? So because I don't like always getting phone calls.
Yeah.
All right.
And some of the other, right below the Code Red sign up, there is also, I believe, a link to the Summit County Sheriff's their reverse 911 where you can actually add your cell phone to theirs. So if it was more of a countywide issue or if it was something big on maybe Route 8 that if you were going to be traveling, it's always kind of nice to know that if that bigger picture on, I'm always happy to stay in Hudson, but every now and again
we do want to get out of town. That's
to
right.
see something. But so
Kevin, that is just excellent. I didn't know that existed. I think I want to mention something before we go on to the phone. To navigate the city website, you go to hudson.oh.us and then start looking. I think you'll find buttons for various things that you may be interested in, council meetings and broadband and so on. But just start exploring it to try to find what you need and what you want. I found it a little bit harder than I thought to find some things, but I also found it very easy to find the fire department, EMS, and police. So that's how you get on that city website, and I really would recommend you take a minute. Don't use it for any other reason than just exploring. Get on it and see what's on it and find out where you can register and sign up for things. And again, there's always phones, but it's nice if you can navigate through using your computer. So I wanted to mention that because it isn't as easy as some people think. You have to do a little bit of navigation on that website.
absolutely.
The phone, I learned from you. Tell people about the 911 thing. Now, of course, they'll be flooded with 911 calls.
Some of the things with changing technology, it can be frustrating, kind of like you were talking about on trying to navigate a web page. Can be frustrating, and other time, hopefully the cities is not on. I think they're working very hard to make sure that we make it as easy as possible. And a lot of times, I know, like even with the Code Red on, it's in a lot of different places. So it isn't that one way is better than the other way.
Okay.
We're trying to make it as easy as possible. That okay, if you're looking for this, I don't want you to have to look all over the web page. I want you to be able to find it in a lot of different places. But one of the things that has changed. Is with cell phones, you can actually call 911 with just the side buttons on the phone. And I have to admit, I found this out accidentally. I was helping little kiddos. We were talking about fire education, and I had all my fire gear on, and we were spraying the hose because that's always the most exciting part of a fire station
from my
tour.
daughter.
But because I would stand up and squat down and stand up and squat down, I pushed my button 3 times on the sides of my phone, and it called 911. And I found out because they said, 911, what's your emergency? And, this will be a great thing to talk to the kiddos about. Realized, oh, wait, it's coming from my phone.
Pocket.
So I was able to get it out. I talked about, don't ever just hang up on 911. Tell them, who you are, what happened, that it was an accident. and you can kind of go from there. But it's a great way to know, because sometimes if you were in a situation where it was kind of scary, but pulling your phone out might make it worse, to be able to just reach down to click that the 3 times, and then it just automatically calls 911.
What if you couldn't respond?
At that point, what they're going to do is they're going to try and track down where that call has come from,
I've always
and they're going to
wondered that.
dispatch an officer. Depending on what they can hear in the background, it might be something that they're going to dispatch an ambulance to, or again, depending on what that dispatcher gets to hear. The nice thing is with that technology, we have a lot of improvements, not only with the phones, but with our ability at the 911 dispatch to get it down to normally within an address area to say, okay, it's
someone in Hudson
this is
Park
where
or
it's
something.
pinging, and we're going to
All
start
right.
heading that direction to try and assist, just to find out what it is.
I had always heard a rumor, believe it or not, I learned it was not true, but not even 5 years ago, that you couldn't call 911 from your cell phone because they couldn't locate, if you're in a car, for example, that they couldn't locate you.
It wasn't necessarily that you couldn't call. The hardest thing is we couldn't necessarily locate
you couldn't, okay,
because
yeah.
what would happen is it would ping to a cell tower, and depending on where you were on, a lot of times
It
when
could
we would
just-
have accidents on the turnpike.
Yeah.
Because you had people that were not real familiar with where they were. They just knew they were on the turnpike, and they weren't even sure what city they were near. So they would call, and it might hit our tower, but if they were traveling far enough, they might actually be, over in
Okay.
Brecksville. They might be, somewhere else. So that has definitely improved a lot with the newer technology, and it was kind of one of those that you knew it was a problem, and our dispatchers are fantastic. They would ask a lot of questions on, well, what do you see, and have you gone over a big bridge yet, or have you? So they're trying to pinpoint
narrow
down
it
where
down.
it was, but this takes a lot of that extra part, because in an emergency, all of that explanation, and then if it turned out it wasn't ours, they would then have to relay all of that same information to the next dispatch center
Yeah.
to say, no, this isn't a Hudson thing. This is, who they are. This is the vehicle they're in. This is what was happening. So
Good.
technology is awesome because
Yeah.
it allows us to be a lot more portable, but it's nice that that safety side of things is
It's
catching
catching
up,
up.
that we can now do.
Well, we have 2 minutes, and
Time just flies.
I know. So I want you to talk a little bit about how our phone can be a lifesaver. We all know to pick the emergency contact, and it shows a little red symbol on the contact list.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have, Kevin.
So a lot of the phone services are designed that they have an in case of emergency feature on the phone that you can have it loaded in. Each carrier kind of has some of their own little parts of it, but most of the time it has your name. A lot of times it can have the medical histories. It can have the medications that you have on. It can have blood types. It can have allergies. So that can all be prominently displayed. A lot of the phones have it where you can save that as part of your home screen. So that makes it much easier that if you were found, if your phone was locked, I can't necessarily unlock it because it's designed to be a secured phone.
Right.
But if it's part of your home screen, a lot of times that can at least get us that emergency information if need be. And this is definitely one of those most underutilized features of a phone. So
do we find it in settings?
a lot of times it's in settings.
Okay.
A lot of times it's under a medical. If you did on your search of your phone, you could type in case of emergency.
Okay.
And a lot of times it will have, it'll kind of lead you down that path. And you can enter as much or as little information as you want. Just know the more information that you can provide as part of that makes it easier that in the event that something horrible was happening, it gives us that additional information to kind of go on.
So certainly allergies, medical history, and medications as briefly as possible.
Yep.
Kevin, we only have 42 seconds. I had a quick thought. This is what I was going to ask you. I also heard this, well, let's not go into it. We've got 30 seconds. I want to make sure, though, that if it's on my home screen, you can access it and you can then find out about me if I'm lying unconscious on the sidewalk.
So those are all great things.
That's good. Thank you, thank
Sure.
you, thank you. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned as much information as I have today. The Hudson City Fire non-emergency number will be on the television screen after this show is over. So thank you for watching, and thank you, Kevin, so
Sure.
much.